Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and I am the hostess of The Democratic View, which is a show that presents ideas and issues in our town of East Hampton. With me today, I have a young lady who was a candidate for trustee on the Democratic line, and I am going to talk about the first time I met her, which was when she screened before the screening committee. You know, that's how we work it. If people come and say, I'd like to run, and we talk to them and see if we think they are qualified. And when this woman started to speak, I knew her name, Nancy LaGarenne, from her letters in the East Hampton Star, which were very eloquent. And as a matter of fact, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the issue that she was writing about. Before we do that, Nancy, I want you to tell us, how long have you been living here in East Hampton?
We moved here full-time in 1988, end of 88. And so we've been in our home in East Hampton for 23 years. And we first lived in Napeague with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. And we love it out here. Always did. Came out years ago, first time when I was 16, to Napeague and to Montauk. And I worked out here as a teenager, as did my husband and his whole family. And yeah, we love the East End, and we love Montauk and East Hampton. And
you raised your children here?
Yes.
And they are products of our school system?
They are, both graduates of East Hampton High School, and come out here as often as they possibly can. And my one son is visiting now from California, and yes.
Well, that's my thought has always been, if you want to make sure your children come and visit you, have a house in East Hampton.
Yes.
So the issue that you are going to talk to us about today is about a large piece of property near where you live. Could you give us the real background of this whole piece of land?
Okay, it first came to my attention, though I was well aware that I lived, as my granddaughter would now say, you know, in the forest. We have this beautiful forest, which is right next to, or down the road from where I live. And I'm on one corner, and this forest, land, woods, is on the other corner. And it's quite beautiful, and there's trails, and there's birds of all kind, and there's wild turkeys, and there's deer, and there's owls, and lady slipper flowers. I mean, it's just beautiful, and it's uncleared. There is a driveway. So I knew nothing about it, about the history, but I've recently learned, or I learned 4 years ago when I got involved. I read a letter in the East Hampton Star that was written by someone who's now a neighbor and friend who lives on Oakview Highway, and she wrote about this land that was to be developed. Now, I read that letter, and I was very disturbed because it spoke of this forest and these woods that was going to be turned into a housing development that would level the woods, 57 houses, and a sewage treatment plant. That sort of gave me the chills. Yeah. And so,
like the Heinz variety.
I read the letter, and I read it again. It wasn't that long. It was very to the point. It was Robin Layton's letter. And I immediately got, you know, my pen and paper and then sent a letter off to the Star. In the meantime, a very lovely woman that lives down the road from me and is part of a group that I'll tell you about, wrote a letter the same week that I did about the very same thing. She read Robin's letter. She was equally appalled and wrote about it. And then somehow we met each other and said, oh, you wrote a letter. Oh, you wrote a letter. Yes, we're outraged. And she grew up out here. So she had an even better perspective than I do. I mean, both of us loving the area, she having a different history than I have. Me falling in love with the place and adopting it, her living out here, growing up out here, and loving it. And both wanting to protect it, which is just, you know. So we decided then and there that we would have to do more than write a letter. What would we do? And how many people care like we care? and we found out 200 people care and more. And we formed a group, and then we said, we need a title for our group. And so what'll we call it? Something catchy, something that means something, something that has to do with East Hampton, something about the woods that we are trying to protect. The area is known as Freetown historically because the freed slaves and the Montauk Indians that were displaced lived there. So it's a working class neighborhood. That kind of was always a working class neighborhood because the rich people never lived there. As I said, the original locals lived there, the Montauk Indians and the freed slaves. So the area not only is beautiful, it's rich in history, and it became a working class neighborhood. So all of the affordable housing is there. It's very dense in population, which is why we bothered to write a letter. Besides the fact that we love the woods and the forest, and it's beautiful, it's more than that.
What do you mean by affordable housing?
I mean by housing that the town came up with a program 24 years ago, maybe, before we moved in. And there was a lottery because the problem was there wasn't enough housing for people, local people that lived and worked here. And so they came up with a lottery, and if you made a certain amount of money, you maybe could get a house. If you made a little more than that, but not enough, you maybe could buy some land that you normally would never be able to afford. And we were living at my mother-in-law's with our 2 kids, and so we entered the lottery. I had been working in the city, and I quit my job in special ed and came out here in hopes of finding a job in the same field. We were in that lottery, and we won. We were able to buy land and build a house. We had never owned a house. We had an apartment in Brooklyn. So this was a dream come true, and we built our house in Whalebone Woods, and that is the land that is down the road from this land that we're trying to save. It was a dirt road. Only a few houses were on that road, Middle Highway, and they since built, there was Whalebone 1, Whalebone 2, the Whalebone Apartments. The town built it, and that's where we live, and we're very lucky to be there, and of course we're for affordable housing, but that was never what that 57 housing development and sewage treatment plant was going to be about. So the other interesting history that I've recently learned is that that was a farm, and there was one farmhouse on that land. It's 8.9 acres, and the Hediger family lived there years ago, 30-something years ago. And people in our group remember that grew up out here. And there were cows, in addition to all the other wildlife that I mentioned. And the woman who died, that owned that land, Mrs. Hediger, never wanted that land to be developed, goes the urban legend, if you will. Is it true? We don't know. I mean, do we have it on paper? No. If it exists, we'll find it. It certainly is an interesting little fact. And so Ronald Webb bought that land from Mrs. Hediger. Did they have a verbal agreement? Some say they did. Please don't develop the land. Stay in the one farmhouse, build your own farmhouse. And how we got from that to build 57 houses, then 14, we fought the 57, we formed a group. And we're the Freetown Neighborhood Advisory Committee in honor of Freetown. And we fought it, and we won against Webb building 57 houses and a sewage treatment plant. Then he came back with 14 houses. Now it's 8 houses, 8 big houses on 8.9 acres. That's the end of the woods. I mean, that's, how do you fit 8 big houses on 8.9 acres and not level the woods? Of course you will. Where does the habitat for the owls, the hawks, all the predators that eat the white mice that carry Lyme disease? Is this not important?
Well, also, you mentioned something, I remember in one of your letters, about water. What is the deal with aquifers in this particular piece of property?
Yes, that has been our thrust from the beginning, the drinking water. The Oakview wells, the Suffolk County Water Authority wells are there. It's not my drinking water or my neighbor's drinking water, it's the town drinking water. We don't have wells. It's town drinking water, comes out of the wells. The land sits on those wells. That to me is a travesty to even consider building on it. How can you not protect the drinking water? If we don't have drinking water and then you're damaging the groundwater, then we're done. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is, becoming and it will be a huge issue in the future, which is water will be as expensive and as powerful as oil is right now, because there's just so much water and everybody needs it. And we have to maintain and take care of our water. So there are some, Suffolk County Water Association has something that's under that ground there?
Yes, the water wells are there. They're in different places in the town, and that happens to be the thing that is so incredible, if you will, is that it was deemed or named a special groundwater protection area in the town's comprehensive plan. So they went out of their way, they upzoned that property years ago to make sure there would never be more than 2, at the most 3 houses put on that land. So when you go out of your way to upzone land and to say it's a special groundwater protection area, it has a distinction then. What happened then was that somebody got it in their mind to, well, obviously someone bought it and then thought about developing, and somebody else might have said, oh, maybe you can build a whole bunch of houses there. Maybe you can see if it's in the affordable housing overlay district, because there's affordable housing nearby. Well, okay, once it was, but then there were houses, a development built in Springs, so that affordable housing overlay distinction was moved to Springs. This came up a long time ago on the town board. Pete Hammerly told the town board members that were new to this is, in fact, a fact. Okay, he was ignored, and they never found proof of it. So we said, so show us the proof. And there has never been any proof. So therefore, how could he possibly go before the town board, ask them to downzone? Now, this is another sticky thing. How would you downzone something that was upzoned to protect the aquifer, to protect the wells, to protect the land in a special groundwater protection area? How would you ever think of downzoning? I mean, it was precedent setting. The town board downzoned it in exchange for an AHO, Affordable Housing Overlay distinction, that he did not have in his possession. So, there's been many things that have transpired in this 4-year fight to save this land. And there's been a little sentiment out there as saying against us, what's the big deal? What's the big deal with you people in this land? Well, the big deal is it's a very big deal. It's a big deal because of the water. It's a big deal because of the woods. It's a big deal because of the animals that live there that are, predators of white mice that spread Lyme disease, which is a town epidemic, hello. And it's a big deal because the density in the neighborhood has reached its saturation point.
Well, if you really want to talk about the density, all of Long Island has reached the end of its destiny, and it's not being considered. There was a gentleman who came down from Stony Brook and gave a talk about, I would say, the end of June, about this terrible blight we are having in our waters that is closing our shellfish. It's happened in Sag Harbor. Last year it was in west of the Ponquod Bridge in Shinnecock Bay. It's this toxic algae which is the result of the nitrogen that's in our soil and obviously into our waters. The source, of course, is urine. And I mean, he quoted Lee Koppelman, who I guess was one of the great environmentalists out here, who said if he had to do it all over again, he'd buy up all the empty land so that we couldn't build on all of this. And there is very precious little little land left, and keeping it open and free from development is what's going to affect whether or not we have water to drink in the future, because there's just so much that this very fragile ground that we live on here in Long Island can afford to absorb. It just can't. You know, it just doesn't, and it's going to affect our water sooner or later. So it is a very important issue, and I saw that before the town board when Mr. Webb's lawyer went before the town board, and the reason they gave for him developing that piece of property is because he's a builder. And I thought, well, thank God he's not, you know, a bomb maker, because then he'd want to do bombs on there. You know, I mean, it's like, that's not a reason to if you're a builder, it's not the reason for you to develop land that has been open and is very important in a very densely populated area. And I know if you ever get behind a school bus going down Oakview Highway, you know how many kids get out?
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yes.
It's a very densely populated area.
It's very densely populated, and right at that particular corner is where the land is. And there's a huge amount of children in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of them in the mobile home park,
Yes,
which
I
is
know.
right there. So that's the school bus pickup.
Yes.
And anytime you try to even get across from Oakview Highway to 3 Mile Harbor Road or across to Jackson Street, you will wait. I mean, and not just in the summer. At 5 o'clock, you should see all the traffic, because all the cut-through traffic comes from Cedar Street. We've got trucks, and they're not going 30 miles an hour. They're not going 40 miles an hour. We are wondering when the traffic study will be done. We used to have East Hampton Police came down and they put up one of those traffic little units where it records people's speed, and then that was gone. And the speeding that goes on Middle Highway and Oakview Highway is just out of hand. It's just out of hand. I mean, listen, I drive there. Sometimes you're in a hurry, but 30 miles an hour, you know, 35, I'll give you 35, but they're not going. I mean, they will, God help you if you step out in that road. People have baby carriages, you know.
I know.
Joggers are there. I mean, these are local people. And, you know, you can't let kids ride bikes there. It's really terrible. It's a family neighborhood that's turned into like a drag racing, all the way down to the apartments. I mean, forget it. You can't. And also, I might also mention that,
Why don't you show that picture so that we can see?
This is the woods that we're talking about. This was taken by a member of our group, John Musnicki, and this is in fall, and it's beautiful, as you can see, the leaves, and it's just really so beautiful, and this only is a piece of it. And then this right here is Regina's farm stand, owned by the Whitneys, who live right next door to the property, and they have an organic farm, which is beautiful. And so how can you build a subdivision next to an organic farm? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. It makes no sense. And it's very selfish and greedy, and if I may be so bold to say so, because the builder has plenty of places he can build. And where it stands right now is the planning board just voted yes in Bud Webb's favor to build these 8 houses. Now, it's not a done deal because it has to go before the town board, who is the deciding vote.
I know.
And because they voted yes, because they downzoned it, and because they approved subdivision, somehow that makes the land more valuable, so they can offer him more money. They've already made him an offer, and he refused.
Who's they?
The CPF is the Community Preservation Fund, who is the governing appointed board that does the appraisal for the town board and comes back and says, this is how much it's worth. And then they present it to the owner of the land and say, this is what it's worth, here's what we're offering. And then he can say, yes, thank you, I'll take that offer, or he can say no. So he said no, and it wasn't enough. We don't know exactly what they offered, but we're happy that they can now offer more. Does he want the money for the land to go build somewhere else, or is he set on building there? Does he care about the woods? It doesn't seem so. Why would he do this? He was born out here. People say that's a naive thought to say, to ask that, because obviously it's for the money. It's not for his family. It's not, he has a house. He has other houses. And so it's not going to be affordable housing. So let's get that straight. I'd like that on record. So he could build somewhere else. He could take the money and leave the woods, and it's not, and save the water.
And it isn't only that, but those huge houses are such an energy pit. I take the below the road, below 27 route when I'm going west, and they have built in Bridgehampton, poor Bridgehampton. I feel so sorry for it, but Southampton has been quite weak on development, and there are like 6 homes that, they could be apartment houses. They're so big. It's ridiculous. Who needs that kind of space? It's unbelievable.
Right.
It's like, I want to tell you how rich I am, so I'm going to have so many square feet in my house, so you'll know I'm rich. And it's horrible, but that's what has been happening in the last years out here.
Yeah.
And it's all about greed and money, and caring for our environment and our potable water has really slipped below the surface, and we don't seem to have enough. Although when you read the Star and you read some of the letters, there are a lot of angry people around who are really angry at what has happened in the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years out here in East Hampton. And I think there's going to be a revolution someday. You read those letters, there's an awful lot of anger.
And the point is, you can be vocal about it, or you could have your head in the sand, and we've got both, camps, and that's across the board, no matter what the topic is, anywhere in the world. But either way, through ignorance or through knowledge, it's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen. We're not going to have water. We're not going to have an environment. We're not going to have fish that we can eat because they're going to be full of whatever, poison. And we've got to wake up and realize it's going to affect us. So yeah, you can go in the house and turn on your TV and watch Dancing with the Stars, but you know what? And nothing against Dancing with the Stars, but you've got to, once in a while, come up for air and realize the water in your drinking glass might be killing you and your little children. Can you wake up and realize that this is not my issue? I've got a life, believe me. I have a very full life, and I'm doing this because it means something to me, and because I believe what Margaret Mead said, that just a small bunch of concerned citizens can change the world. And locally, you can even have more of an effect. Why do you bother, Nance? Why do you bother, people say? I bother because it is a very big deal. It's a big deal to me that my granddaughter can come out here. She's 2, when she's 12 or 22, and she can still come out here, that this place will exist. It won't be taken over by, clubs and what's it going to be? Strip malls and nightclubs?
Nassau County.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Right.
They want Nassau County out here, and we are trying to hold back Nassau County. We don't want to be Nassau County.
It has to do with somebody has to care. Somebody cared years ago. Somebody took care of this place so that their people could enjoy it, their families. So, going all the way back to the Montaukets.
Well, we used to be known as having the strictest rules about everything, and those rules have slipped in the last few years. They are not being attended to, and there is no consequence from the simplest thing of parking at the beach without a sticker, which I go to every morning. This morning, I was the only one, 4 other cars, no stickers. Now, why do I bother to be law-abiding if nobody else is? That's what's going to happen. This is going to become a lawless place if people don't understand that you have to take care of things.
Yeah.
You have to have regard for the earth. It's the most important thing. It's all we have, folks.
Right.
So we better take care of it, and take care of it now. Well, good luck in your fight.
Thank you.
I look forward
Phyllis.
to seeing you before the town board.
Thank you.
And presenting this case strongly.
We'll be there. We'll
I
be
know
there.
you will. My money's on you, honey.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming,
Thank
Nancy.
you for having me.
It was a pleasure, believe me.
Thanks.
So you will be going before.